Joining us now to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Arise News analyst Emmanuel Efeni. Great Malabar.
Good morning, Ruben. Good morning,
Talking about renovating
Good
other schools.
Good morning, Rufai.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, we start the review with this day Nigeria's newspaper of record. And I will start with the window story, the subject we've been discussing all morning. Nigeria's military on alert. Cuts power supply to Niger as ECOWAS continues dialogue. Tinubu throws country into darkness, cuts power supply. Commissioner says failing to act may diminish regional bloc. Dismiss threats from Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea-Bissau. Hints on standby force to protect democracy in West Africa. Yes, military options seem to be very high on the cards, and the Nigerian military on the alert. I know when it comes to push, Nigeria will bear the burden, as it has always been when it comes to matters of military intervention in West Africa. Blood, sweat, and money, it will come from Nigeria. Which reminds me of the story of John Shagaya when I and some other journalists visited him when he was ECOMOG commander in Liberia, in Monrovia, Liberia. And the first thing I said when I saw him in the company of Lindsay Barrett, I said, "We bloody civilians are here." He said, "No. You know why we call you bloody civilians? It's because civilians as emperors, replace that with heads of state or presidents. They just give order that we should go and conquer territories. They don't care about the blood. That's why we call civilians bloody civilians." So the president has made his pronouncement. The Nigerian military is on alert. Going into Niger Republic, well, as the professor has stated, it may not just be a piece of cake, because you are meeting those guys in their own territory and they have been consolidating and also making contacts with other nations with like minds, if you will. But what Nigeria has also done by way of cutting power, that in itself, I don't know how that will resonate with the Nigerians, yes, that Nigeria had to cut power because there's an agreement. In fact, even in the worst of times, when Nigerians talk of power outages, Nigerians have constant power supply because there was an agreement between Nigeria and Niger for Niger not to dam the river Niger from their own end so that the river that supplies our dam, Kanji, Shiroro, and one other dam, can have steady flow of water. Kanji, Shiroro, and the third one, Jeba Dam. Yes, 3 dams, which Nigeria builds, that will supply you light. Don't build your own dam. And I thought that agreement should be sacrosanct, because going forward, even after this episode, I'm sure the Nigerians will take another look at that agreement. And you know, these days, it doesn't cost too much for countries to build dam. You only need to take a trip to China, and the Chinese will be there, ready to do business with you, build a dam, build a port, and with all the other strings attached. Now, the other story on the front page of this day, governors return big time as Tinubu nominates another 19 ministers. So for those who have been singing Orosanye report, please perish that thought, because President Bola Ahmed Tinubu will have a 47-man cabinet. In fact, the Guardian newspaper is reporting that cabinet size near 70, if you put up the Guardian newspaper there, cabinet size near 70 as Tinubu ignores calls for lean government, because, as you know, there are many big boys who are still in the cold waiting to be appointed, and with the president still having at least more than 10 spaces for special advisors. Some of those big boys will come in as special advisors with cabinet rank. Ruben, you know how you do it in Aso Villa. So we are looking at a huge cabinet, as it were. Well, lean government, not for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. I think that is the message. But the number of governors, if we go back to this day now, the number of governors that are on that list is something many people are worried about. But again, these are people who have experience, but political observers have seen this as President Bola Ahmed Tinubu preparing for perhaps a runoff if that were to come out of the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal and ultimately at the Supreme Court. These governors with cabinet portfolio will be on ground to do the needful. Now, the lead story of this day, with Tinubu's promise of Port Harcourt Refinery ready by December, Labour suspends protest, extends dialogue. Federal government to negotiate new salary award. Senate intervenes, promises resolution. Labour threatens to occupy courts over contempt charge. Federal government must cut down cost of governance, says TUC, Rivers workers to president. Allow us to breathe. Fix refineries. Well, Labour, after hitting the streets yesterday, protesting across the country, had a meeting with the president. And from that meeting, according to Labour leaders, useful decisions came out of that meeting. One of which is a promise of Port Harcourt Refinery to be ready by December. Well, we can't get tired of promises, Rufai. So a promise is what it is, a promise. But December will come and we'll know whether that promise will actualize. After all, when President Muhammadu Buhari commissioned the Dangote Refinery, we were told PMS and other products will flow by August. While in August, work is still on at that end. So, but for Labour, a promise is enough to call up the protest. And you won't blame them if they do that. After all, they have backed, as many expected them to do. Whether they can bite is another matter altogether. Of course, other newspapers reporting the stories. The Punch newspaper, subsidies protest, banks, offices shut amid rallies, Labour demands 200,000 naira wage. NLC, TUC leaders hold emergency NEC meeting after special meeting with Tinubu National Assembly. Federal government sues Labour leaders, says protests will be suspended. How protesters broke National Assembly gates. Now, the Daily Sun newspaper, mass protests rock Nigeria. FG commits to fix refinery by December. Of course, one of the things being said by Labour is that the president did not say anything about the refineries. Now the president has said something about the refineries. Port Harcourt refineries will be ready by December, and Labour is satisfied. Now, the Daily Trust newspaper, Tinubu meets Labour as workers storm National Assembly government. Now, the Nation newspaper also reporting that story. Labour talks with Tinubu on cost of living fruitful. NLC president made pledges on refineries wage award. Of course, asking for 200,000 naira as minimum wage. That will have to go through the negotiation process. The tripartite committee of government, organized private sector, and Labour will have to negotiate what the new minimum wage should be. And I'm sure it will come down.
They said work is not still on Dangote. They said they are waiting for crude oil. It's crude oil they are waiting for.
Okay, they are waiting for crude oil.
That's work. It's not that there's work. Work is not on.
No work.
No work. That
they are ready to refine.
It's crude oil
that we have in Nigeria.
For. Yes.
Crude oil that we have in Nigeria.
Crude oil.
That's what they are waiting for.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
It's crude oil.
But PMS not flowing yet. As at August?
No, they are waiting for crude oil.
Okay.
They didn't promise PMS, to be fair. They
They
said
said products.
Products.
They
Yes.
say product, to be fair to them.
And PMS is
Crude
what?
oil is in the pipeline.
It's in the air, but they're waiting for the crude oil, Dr. Abbott.
Okay.
So please. But work is, not that work is on, no.
Work has been
Concluded
completed.
Work, but it's waiting for crude oil.
Well, I think this is an information for the president also.
Yes.
Because we need Dangote Refinery to be running and producing products so that we don't spend hard currency, foreign exchange to be importing petroleum products. We're about the only oil producing country doing that right now. It is not a thing of joy. It is not a thing of glory. Now, if we just look at the New Telegraph newspaper, the story above the masthead, Capital Flight, federal government takes over idle facility to halt 400 billion naira annual loss. Yes, to put an end to an annual capital flight of over 400 billion naira, that's about $500 million. The federal government has taken over idle ports facility for rehabilitation and use. Now, the foreign newspapers quickly. The Times of London. Get on your delivery bike. The over 50s, non-working older people should widen their ideas. And of course, the Mel Stride, the Work and Pension Secretary, has told those who are older than 50 to consider taking up jobs they might not have been thinking about, like taking a bike to distribute goods. Job usually reserved for younger people. Of course, that's his own way of telling those who are economically inactive to seek new opportunities. Of course, those about 8.6 million people in the UK, 1 in 5 people are working adults are classified as economically inactive, and 3.4 million of those people are over 50s. They have been advised, look for something to do, even if it means riding bike to distribute pastries.
So just some quick updates.
Yes.
The crude oil produced in Nigeria is already committed to swaps till August. Hence the delay to feed Dangote Refinery. That's what's happening. Please, it's important information. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I think that would be a good story on its own. I'm sure the business editors are listening and they will follow up that story. Now, we look at the Washington Post newspaper. Trump's intent is central to prosecution. Talking about the Washington Post there. The Trump story is on the front page of the Washington Post and, of course, the New York Times.
Okay, thank you, Fene, but we should not be afraid if Niger is going to build their own dam and dam the River Niger. The supply of electricity in Nigeria is majorly thermal, 85%. Olorun Shogun, Geregu, Afam, Omotosho, Igni. These are all thermal plants. We get 15% from the hydro dams, from Shiroro, Jeba, and Kanji. And they say it's rolling blackouts that they have. No, they should put Niger in complete blackouts for the effrontery.
You are not
you
will not be punishing the military junta. You are punishing the Nigerian people.
Well,
and they will take note of that.
Well, then they will ask questions from their leaders. In any case, thank you very much. Thank you.
Don't give them better.
You are talking like
don't give them solar panel.
Okay.
Don't give them generator.
No, this is Nigeria. You should show.
Don't give them a better pass.
Sometimes you show your might. It's not all by
give them
going to
generator.
war. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel Efeni.